G'day, thanks for being here. I'm Osher Ginsberg, and this is Better Than Yesterday. This is Wolfgang. How are you, bun?
Good.
Yeah, good. What are you eating?
Candy cane.
Candy cane. Came back from daycare with a candy cane. I wanted to thank you so much for your support this year. I love making this podcast. I really do, because it's an excuse, really, a reason for me to learn something at the same time as connecting with you and my guests. And the reason that I started this show, still as real and true for me as the day that I started, because I derive a huge amount of purpose, I guess, from the pursuit of, I don't want to say mastery, but mastery, like just trying to get as good as I can at the thing that I'm trying to do. And that includes myself, at identifying things that don't serve me, and trying to get better at being me, being a better dad every day. And some of the biggest lessons out of this year came from podcasts that I'm really proud to bring you over the next few weeks, starting with the magnificent Pardon?
Peacock.
Peacock? No, they didn't come. But Ben Gillies and Chris Joannou came. And it was a really extraordinary conversation. That's the drummer and the bass player from Silverchair. What I really got out of this conversation was the incredible power of connection and the power of friendship. You've got friends at daycare, don't you? Yeah? You like to go see them. You like to hang out. And there's some people that you play with more than others, isn't there? What I really learned from Ben and Chris is that if you put the effort in and you're willing to respect and do the work to maintain those relationships, they can become a supersuit, which defends you from many of life's perils that just keep coming as you get older. And when Ben and Chris came, and they came to this room, they came into this conversation, this space to chat with me, look, yes, there were stories of debauchery. There were stories of pain around the band breaking up and some incredibly difficult health challenges that they've both faced. To be honest, to see these two guys together as the closest of mates after everything they've been through, it's hands down, one of the most inspiring and moving moments in my career. And it was a massive lesson for me to hold long-term friendships sacred, to nurture them, to defend them, to respect them. And if you do those things, those relationships are there to pull you out of the mire should you really need it. Enjoy this conversation with Ben Gillies and Chris Joannou. Well, thanks for coming.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us. This is actually a cool little. I like this little setup. It's got a vibe. It's got a definite vibe.
It's good. Well, I'm glad you're here.
I've got a question for you.
I've got an answer, Ben.
How did it go from Andrew G to Osher?
I've never been known by my own name.
Right.
And both my parents changed their names.
Right.
Anglicised them like many immigrants did.
Yeah.
I'm an immigrant, but I'm white. No one cares. When I was in radio, I started in radio when I was 20, just after I finished playing in bands.
Right.
Which is when I first met you, but I don't know if you remember it. And
you were originally in Brisbane, weren't you?
I was in Brisbane, yeah. And
I saw it the Annandale on the.
No. Oh, that was fun. You saw me at that gig?
I did see it.
Fuck off, you were at that gig?
I was at that gig.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was a fucking good gig.
It was a good gig.
I've got to get that double bass back, actually. Yeah, and so I'd been known by nicknames my whole life at school, and then in radio. It was radio in the 90s. You had, like, radio nicknames stick to you like shit to a blanket, right?
Oh, yeah. And then, we saw Ugly Phil just before. Right?
Yeah, we did actually. And so exactly. So when I went to radio in Adelaide, finally I got a job with the Sun Up. I'm like, I want to get named, Andrew Ginsberg. He's like, it's pretty Jewish. Andrew G. It's like, oh, okay. And then I was in a different country, and it was a way of putting a difference between drinking me and not drinking me.
Right.
Drinking and using me and not drinking and using me.
Yep.
And, in the same way that the moment someone called you dad, that changed who you were to that person, and it changed how you thought about how fast you go on a motorbike, or, I'm going to go do this fucking thing tonight. It's like, actually, maybe I won't change that, because it's the idea of nominative determinism, right? So it did start. There was a bloke, there was star charts. There was all that shit when it started. And I was like, okay then. But now, when I look back at that, I think it's less to do with that, and it's more to do with, it was easy because I was living in a different country, and I just introduced myself as Osher. People go, okay, all right. And I was able to live into that person, and then that's the person I am.
Yeah.
So there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
It's pretty much that.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, I was thinking of when I first met you guys. It was at the zoo in Brisbane in the Valley.
Oh yeah, was Magic Dirt supporting?
Oh no, it was
one of the
way
early...
before that. I think it was just after SBS.
Were we playing?
You played. We supported you.
Yeah, right.
We supported you upstairs at the zoo.
I remember playing the zoo.
Yeah, it was that gig.
It was definitely.
I made the flyer. I made it with Texter and old bits of a Judge Dredd comic that I cut up and then I photocopied it.
I mean, it was literally, it really was
94 or so. Yeah, it was
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember the moment of that was you were being, because we were one of the 3 bands that Sony was courting while they were looking for their Powderfinger.
right.
They ended up going with you guys. And rightly so. But I remember that when you guys got that deal, I remember how, like, fuck, we killed that gig. I was like, how come it was those guys? I was like, it was because they were at best.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It feels like another lifetime ago.
Yeah, well, it was.
Yeah.
It was nearly 30 years ago. And I was doing push-ups before that gig. I remember
Getting pumped up.
I was doing push-ups before that show because I was like, here we go. It was rad fun. It was so fucking cool. And I remember watching you guys play. It was so amazing to see, because when I grew up, there was no one who was of that age writing their own songs. We weren't allowed to. It was like you had to play other people's songs. You had to play covers if you didn't have any legitimacy. And then you guys show up going, well, fuck it, we'll write our own songs.
Yeah.
You just gave yourself permission to do it.
Well, I think we were just curious about it. We just had a curiosity.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one of the first songs with a little itch that needed to be scratched.
Yeah.
I remember one of the first songs called I Felt Like It. And it was literally like E, A, A, D, D, A, A.
The classics.
Yeah, the classics, you know, Gloria, you know, it works.
Yeah, and even before I was in the band, when it was just Ben and Dan, like I remember even in year 4 or 5.
Year 3, I think, or year 4.
Like lunchtime concerts.
Yes.
And there was already, you know,
There's a curiosity.
your own material.
Yeah, we were when Dan and I first met. Dan had a couple of rap songs he'd already written, and then he and I we did a couple together, and then we I think this might be in the book actually.
The denim jackets.
The denim jackets. Yeah. And we used the desks as our stage, and got up there and swung around our heads and sung rap songs to the demo button on the school keyboard, and you know, so it definitely started from an early age.
You started 1,000 million. Everyone says Roland with the 808 and the 303 and all that business.
Well, let's be real.
Casio.
Yeah,
Casio
it's
demo
definitely-
button. That's all you
Casio
need.
demo button.
That's all you need. Yeah.
But there was always a Samba option too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Or Casio chord. I love that shit.
Yeah, they're all available.
It was fun though.
It was great fun. I think those keyboards was part of the discovery.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what a bossa nova was, and there was a bossa nova button. You hit it and you go, oh, cool.
Yeah, that's that one.
I can download that. I know what it is now.
They're not playing that on Star FM. They're not playing on FM 104. You don't hear bossa nova in Brisbane, but samba is now suddenly in my life because I push a button and there it is. It's like, that's a cool beat. That's not 1 3 1 3, which was, you know, everything else.
Yeah, that's right.
There was Australians clap on the 1 and the 3. It's sometimes like
It's not
right. It's not right.
No.
Yeah.
But you look at old TV shows. Come on, Aussie, come on, come on. It's so terrifying.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily fortunate that I've had this kind of wild career and a parallel of being able to observe you doing what you're doing over the course of your life. And it's just amazing to listen to the book. The way my brain works, I do a thing on my phone and I get it to read the screen to me. So Siri read the whole thing to me.
I did a similar thing during the process of the editing process and going through. I discovered a program called Speechify.
Amazing.
And I think I read. We must have read it maybe 6 times. And then in the final hour, I was like, I just need a couple more. I need a couple more run throughs. And I think it nearly made my brain melt because I listened to it like double the speed, and you really can intake the information. I think if you read along with it. And by the end, I was like, I'm so cooked. I was up to maybe number 8 at that point, but yeah, it's a good way to read it, right? It almost takes a lot of the thought out of it, but you're still digesting it.
It's just the way my head works. If school was in an audio format, I would have nailed it. It's the reading part.
Yeah, reading the same sentence 3 times.
Dude, I know. It just reminds me I haven't taken my ADHD meds this morning. Sorry. I might ramble. I apologise. The thing that got me a lot about this book and it just really struck me how you were able to put into words the friendship that is at the core of what made your band your band.
Well, I'm glad you noticed that. Yeah, because there was one conversation we were having this morning and we were talking about the book, but a lot of people do get heavily focused in on the band era, but essentially Ben and I have known each other for 43 years, so 14 years or 13 years before the band started and about the same post the band, and, experienced some super big highs and some difficult times as well, but we're still really good mates. And you don't get that in life. No. It's so rare to say you've known someone for that long.
And had those experiences as well, and not just the band, but all the other kind of just life stuff that I think we all experience. Like we've kind of been through it all.
Like he finishes my sentences and things. It's really
all
nice.
Very cute. Yeah.
But there was a particular moment. As you know, as I said to you before, I'm in recovery. I'm like nearly 13 and a half years, and you spoke quite openly about a moment where you make an amends.
Yes. Yeah.
What was happening before that? There was a kind of a distant kind of space between the two of you?
I think a lot of it was substance related. I had an alcohol problem. I guess that one, I am an alcoholic. And
mate, we are the majority in this room right now. I'll tell you that. 2 out of 3 right here.
So I guess we both talk about our personal journeys, and I just felt like that was quite a significant part of my life where I really battled with it. But once I stopped drinking, and I went to a couple of AA sessions, it didn't really work for me. But one thing I took away from it was that having to mend the relationships that may have suffered because of the addiction or the substance abuse. And Chris was such an important part of my life, and we had drifted apart. And for me, from my perspective, it had a lot to do with drinking and just, saying some horrible things to Chris that I didn't mean, and having to mend that bridge. And look, it was really confronting, but it's just, I think in life, when you confront those things, there's always a gift on the other side of it. And the gift was the fact that we were able to get past it and kind of rekindle out that friendship that was so important to both of us. And it was on me. I had to do it because I was in the wrong. I'd fucked up, basically.
Oh, mate, I know that all too well.
Yeah,
and it's an ongoing process. I just because I stopped drinking and using doesn't mean I have to stop making amends. Like I still fuck up quite a bit.
Yeah. And I think there's a real huge, like, when we started the process, talking about those stories as well as the band experiences, I think was important to have them in there just to show.
It brings a lot of context.
Yeah, and it shows that it's not just like sex, drugs, and rock and roll and traveling around having these crazy stories. It's like we've had these other human experiences that people will relate to. Yeah. Because I think ultimately most people on the planet, it doesn't matter if you're having these extraordinary experiences in a band or whatever it is that people look up to and they see it on the TV or and they hear it, like those people are still having a very similar experience to you, but maybe you don't necessarily see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone listening who knows somebody who has an addiction problem, gambling, shopping, sex, whatever, will have had one of those phone calls. Chris, they're like, what? I haven't heard from that guy in forever. Why does he want to meet me at a cafe? We never meet at cafes.
Yeah.
What's it like to be on the other side of that?
Look, I was all for it because, I know the value too of what that friendship was and what we had experienced together. And it wasn't that there were a few moments and stuff between Ben and I, and it just needed space because it wasn't pleasurable anymore. It wasn't enjoyable, and there were a lot of other contributing factors that were just sort of. It wasn't what it used to. It wasn't enjoyable anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, we had an hour or two catch up, and you lay it all out on the table, and it all makes complete sense. It wasn't like Ben was trying to make excuses. We just spoke openly about what it was and what happened, and and it's really easy to move forward. Like, I wanted that as much as Ben did as well.
Yeah.
But like, we've never looked back from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's important too. It's not.
Yeah.
There's no grudges. It's like, it's about moving forward.
And it was really generous that you guys put that in, because you could have not put that in. But it's super generous that you did, because there's certainly in this country, it's starting to change. And this, I think, will be a big part of that, is like kind of demonstrating that process of, like, as you just mentioned, we might be these guys on stage doing this thing, but we're going through the same bits of life that everybody else is. Yeah. There's an amplification factor, but you know as well as I do, like, I've met people that aren't in my game. Certainly when I was at my peak kind of chaos mode, they're just blokes that own a ute and do tradie stuff, and they're like, I'm like, fuck, Jesus Christ. Like, they're like full, like, kind of better than any backstage thing I've ever seen as their general Friday night. Yeah. So it's not, doesn't discriminate.
No.
It comes for anybody, anywhere.
That's right,
We only hear about the people that play footy or are in music or actors or whatever because they're the people of profile, but it's everywhere. Yeah. And the opportunity to see what can happen to a friendship or a relationship after that.
Well, we're...
It's important.
Social creatures, and like, we thrive on relationships and friendships, and they enrich your life.
It's wild listening to, because there's a bit of stuff made in the book, and this is the part where our history's kind of, the Venn diagram comes like this. Because I remember a night at the Grafton in LA.
Oh yeah, that place.
The Grafton's dangerous.
So I remember that, and it was around that kind of Jay Leno appearance that, and I was like, fucking Christ, please let it not have been the night before.
Well, there was more than one. So
yeah. Well, it was like,
it definitely reached a tipping point of, just excess. And I don't know if that's just part of that snowball effect, or everyone was kind of looking for, I don't know how it just escalated. Yeah.
I understand. It makes complete sense, because you just had 250,000 people scream your name and sing your songs back to you. What next? What happens now?
Yeah, balance is interesting concept.
It is.
In amidst all that.
Well, when I got, and I've talked about this, when I got clean, I would go to these meetings. I'd be like, but, and then I got sent to this meeting on Sunset, because I was living in America at the time, and I sat there and I was like, all right, well, I've camped out for your tickets. I own all your CDs. I've interviewed you 3 times, and people would say exactly that. They would speak about their experience. I'm like, oh, right, yeah, okay. Yeah. This is what I get now. Okay, how do you do that? Because I know that feeling. I know what it gets to get off stage or whatever at 11 at night and be like, okay,
what now?
I am literally
bedtime, everybody,
doing 9,000 revs a minute for a day. Because that's what it takes to do the job.
Yeah.
What happens for the next 7 hours?
Trying to pump the brakes.
Yeah, man. And it's important, man. It's really important. You grew up in has been revealed history of your band that has come out, from reading this book and other things that have come out. There's some stuff, like some public attention, stalky stuff that I certainly wasn't aware of. And that, I know, that's scary as shit when that starts to happen when you're a kid. So it's like another fucking level. What was it like? Were you aware of how intense that was?
Early days, I think there was an element of blissfully unaware. there's definitely one in particular riding to school with Dan one morning and, finally having a photographer. You're at that point where there's someone following you to take photos.
You're just on a pushy on the way to school.
Yeah.
School uniform.
Yeah, I'll just be taking photos of children that aren't mine riding to school. This is fine. It's not.
It was a ride to school safely campaign, apparently. Yeah.
Were you being heroes? Were you wearing helmets?
Probably hanging off the handlebars.
Yeah.
That's the safest place for it.
Trying to make an example of us. But
it's like getting anyway.
There's no denying Dan definitely experienced probably a more intense moment through a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I guess essentially we're all on the same wave. And you sort of, once it was rolling, you either found ways to find comfort in where your little sanctuary was, or tried to cope with it as best you could, really. Yeah.
You're both parents now. As you happens to all of us, you look at your own kids and go, oh, fuck. And you sort of, a lot of things come to mind of what you did. Like, you guys talking about, the mum tour or the dad tour, when you're now that you both, have the responsibility for this kind of helpless human, no matter how big they get, there's still that little child that couldn't feed or clothe or look after themselves. Does it make you think any differently about what your folks were trying to do for you at that time?
Hugely. Yeah. It makes you appreciate maybe how generous they were to let us follow our dreams, because we were so young. How scary that might have been for them.
Yeah, I looked. There's a photo in the book. I think it's the one we're on the plane or somewhere, but looking at heaps of other stuff recently, and it just dawned on me, like, our parents were kind of our age now, touring the world with their sons in a band, and I just think, how do you my head would explode.
That?
And I was like, oh God, that would just be.
Well, it's like, you consider, like, what am I allowing my child to take part in? Like, because I guess the stigma of the music industry is sex, drugs, and rock and roll and wild parties, and I don't think that's entirely true. Like, it is hard work, but that element is definitely mixed into it. So for them to be semi-aware of that and to allow us to do it, you got to take your hat off to them, because I think ultimately they knew that we were in love with the music. I think if we were chasing, going like, we just want to be famous, I think if that was our motivation, maybe they would have been a little bit more hesitant. But the fact that we were like that, I think they could tell that we were just so keen to be musicians and play and record and create. Maybe that made it easier for them to be able to go, well, I don't want to have a regret if I deny my child to follow their dreams in 10 or 20 years, where they go, why didn't you let me do that? Because that was my passion and that's what I love to do. So, that doesn't mean they weren't bloody nervous.
But plus, we don't know what we know now either. So every step of the way back then was just kind of, there was excitement and nervous energy probably on their part, but just pure excitement for us.
Yeah.
It was just one foot in front of the other.
And let's face it, I think they got a kick out of it too.
Yeah.
Traveling the world.
Yeah. I mean, my dad would always we'd be sitting there just chatting, and he'd just bring up randomly like, oh, do you remember this? And do you remember that?
It was yesterday.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So I'm struggling around. Like, Dad, that was 25 years ago.
I have a memory. I think it was possibly the most drunk I've ever been in my life. There's a rule in New Orleans, and this is it touches on this in the book. There's a drink called a grenade on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and you really only should have one grenade. I had several grenades. I went out with a couple of the guys from our tutor and a guitar tech from another band. Anyway, I got absolutely poleaxed, and it was a dad's tour, and I think it was possibly the most drunk I've ever been in my life. And I remember waking up and looking around and going, I have no idea where I could be in a gutter. I don't know. I don't know how I got here. I've completely blacked out. Anyway, the next minute I just heard Dad snoring. And it was like
Yes,
it was
I'm
like
in the hotel room.
Like, usually, I hated hearing my dad snoring on the dad's tour. It would drive me crazy. But it was the time when I heard it. It was like angels.
A big blanket. It was like a big blanket.
Oh, safety! Dad's here. I don't know how I got here, but Dad's right there. Yes. Oh my God,
That sounds that's terrifying.
Fuck me. It's interesting hearing you say that, you know. Sorry to circle back to the drinking thing, but I thought you covered it really, really well because you explained what it is in a way that I really related to. You mentioned the kind of 2.5 drinks kind of feeling.
Yeah,
you know?
that's kind of what you chase.
You know, and it was that being that maggot is what ended up every time in the end for me, but it was that I just need to find that. Where is it?
Spot?
It's one beer away.
If I can sit
Just
there,
if I can just maybe a bit of this, bit of that, it was never ever there. I never held it, but I was always racing after it, and everything just got worse and fucking worse and worse and worse and worse. And I thought you described that in a way that, well, hopefully a lot of people can go, oh yeah. Actually,
I get it.
Now I think about it. I don't actually get better at pool.
Oh, you think you do? You think you get better at everything, but you just get worse.
Dancer, that's for sure. Oh, way.
Oh, yeah, maybe dancing. Maybe that's the only exception.
It's a brave thing to write because of who you are to people and what you mean to people, and you know, it was a moment. You were it's like anything. You were the right guys in the right band at the right time, playing the right music. In a radio network that's just gone national with something like Triple J, people looking for, you know, you were just those guys.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure there were other bands around you that worked as hard and wrote as many songs.
Oh, no doubt.
There was a certain, I think, I do think I think we've got enough perspective now, but it's hard when you're in a band. But I do think that Silverchair just had a certain magic about it. Yeah. There was a chemistry, but when the three of us played together, that was our reality. That's all we knew. Yeah. But it wasn't until after we stopped playing as a band that I played with some other musicians that I realised like just how special when the three of us came together and played. I don't know how or why, but the sum of all of the parts there was just a special magic spark.
Same. Like that's a big part of the reason why I haven't really. Well, I've done nothing musically. I did a few projects, same thing after, did a bit of producing, but it just never got to that feeling moment.
Yeah. That unspoken kind of thing that jazz guys talk about where they just know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a real...
We had a knowing where when the three of us came together, there was some kind of like, you put your finger on it. It is that X factor. Yeah, where you go, I don't know why it is that when we play together that it just creates something extra special.
Yeah.
You know?
Even after those extended breaks in between records, or even if there'd been 12 months of not playing, then we jumped in and did a show or something.
You'd forget.
By the end of the first day back in rehearsals, you'd be like, that's right.
How good is this?
It's not like you're waiting all week to get back to that sort of match fitness element again. It was just by the end of the first day, you'd always be going, this is great.
It's a reminder how good it was.
You become a social surfer, like, you know, sporadically surfed over the years, and like you don't surf for like 5 years, and you go and pat on the wave, and you're like, what have I been doing? This is awesome.
Yeah. One of the things that can really pull a band apart, unfortunately, it's the money. And one of my favourite bands ever when I was a kid, some of the stuff doesn't date very well, Van Halen. They were amazing. And I remember reading an interview with Michael Anthony, the bass player, got two first names, just talking about, they really take care of me. Basically, because they kind of decided early on, it's going to be a four-way split. Eddie writes everything, but it's a four-way split because, you know, they kind of figured out, like, because the way that it works for people listening, there's music, there's lyrics, and then there's two parts of getting paid. There's publishing, royalties, and then there's, you know, performance. And there's my favourite story when I went to music school, or TAFE. And there was a...
We did TAFE too, mate. It's all right.
Yeah. I did mine in Brisbane with contemporary music.
Yeah,
Take a TAFE course in something you're already quite good at.
Yeah.
Got me into uni.
It
was pretty good. Because they were explaining publishing. They were explaining royalties and the business of it. And they told this Skyhook story where they were it was after Living in the 70s came out, and they show up to rehearsal, and Greg, the bass player, shows up in a 911 Porsche, and Shirley Strawn's still driving his VW Beetle. And he goes to the manager, he's like, what the fuck's going on here? And he goes, yeah, but he writes the songs. Yeah, but I'll sing them. It's like, yeah, but he writes the songs. And that was the conversation around how, what you're publishing. When that stuff started to play a role and you started to see where things were going, did that exacerbate things? Did it make things difficult?
I guess years ago, probably not so much, but I think as the years did tick on, there was definitely, I guess, moments of reflection of how things may have been structured, and but I mean, and it's also been very different for me. Essentially, I've never been a songwriter within the band directly, but so that sort of emotional journey's been a little different for Ben. But yeah, I mean, reflecting on it, I think everyone was probably making decisions in the moment that might have felt best for the individual at the time, and
rather than the collective.
Yeah, yep. And now, subsequently, years later, it probably might be a few moments that are a little harder to swallow, but that's what happened. And that's what it is.
I think it does touch on in the book that a lot of bands that do just split everything equally famously, they stay together longer, they're more successful, they have more hits, they have, I think they've won more Grammys, and I think it's, you need to look at the band as you can have a main kind of creator, but, I think through the process, particularly the Silverchair, we call it the Silverchair filter, we all contribute to those songs, like, on it from a structural point of view, and then putting our own kind of personal signatures on there. Like for myself, like rhythmically, I think there's very much a personal signature on those songs. And then also like the promotion, and using the vehicle of the band to actually get them out into the world. I think that's an important something to recognise. And, I think that's why it is important that if we had the time again, that, and we know, if we knew what we knew now, you might say, well, I think the fair way to do this is to split it equally. But that's not how it happened, and it doesn't matter.
It's interesting how it does play into dynamics.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Yeah, I think at the time, people were just genuinely trying to make the best decisions for their, respective
children.
Yeah,
rather than as a whole.
Right.
But, again, I think it was just, I think a lot of that had to do with their parents doing what they thought was right at the time.
Yeah.
And they were looking at, very much from an individual point of view rather than a band as a whole and the longevity of the band. But, maybe they didn't know that either.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think as a parent, you look out for your own kid.
Yeah.
And that's normal.
Yeah. I wonder if, like, from here, because the music industry is very different now. You don't sell a record. You'd give away a concert ticket to get an album sale. Now you give away an album to get a ticket sale.
It has flipped,
the music's free, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The units don't cost anything, but that's why people pay $400 to go see a show.
Yeah. Wow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Planes are expensive. 15 hotel rooms on a small tour is hard.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Taragos or whatever the Starry. I don't know what it even is called now. Like, it's a lot of minivans.
Yeah. And the productions again, like, you go and see some of those productions and they're huge.
Yeah.
It's
just, I wonder if, the music industry can learn from the way for example, that startups or tech startups are founded, you know, where the person who's the chief coding person, you know, she might not have had the inception of the idea, but she's there and she's got shares vested, and like the thing only exists because it wasn't her concept, but she's the one that wrote the code that ended up making the thing work. And then, you know what I mean? Like, and then depending on how big the thing gets, because she was a part of that first few months of it or first years of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like maybe, like I wonder if that's looking at it largely like that. It seems like such an antiquated way of getting musicians paid. I'd love to see a change in that, because without people getting paid, no one's going to want to write music. You know, no one's going to want to write their next favourite songs. Yeah. And it's all going to come from other countries, unfortunately, because Australians can't afford to do it, which sucks. Yeah. Really fucking sucks. You know, it's real hard. Like, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't start now. No way.
It'd be, I can't imagine what it would be like being a new artist now. Like, it would be starting from the ground up. It would be really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I much prefer the 90s. 90s were great.
Well, you're still selling a physical thing. You know, you were selling a physical thing. You had merch money in a Ziploc bag. Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. What do you mean? I don't know. What are you talking about? Oh, boy, the stories of it. There's three of you in the band, and the friendship that's the core of the band that makes the music what it is and makes those moments together in the jam room so special, that unspoken thing that, you know, built for years before any of you were in the room together, that you could then draw upon once you learn how to communicate with music. What's that like when one of those people starts to kind of pull back? And what's it like when you see that person kind of struggling with their health?
There's a lot of interesting, I guess, life experiences that the three of us have shared. Some probably a little more intense than others. Some, you know, there were moments that Ben went through that I had absolutely no idea, yet we were around each other like 24/7 for bulk periods of those years. So yes, I guess some things are held a little bit more privately. But you know, in a sense of like Dan moving out and doing other creative things. I mean, that was happening early on in the piece with, you know, Can't Believe It's Not Rock and, you know, Dissociatives and other projects that were coming up. So it wasn't essentially a new concept, but it was, for me personally, at times difficult to have to come to terms with this thing being the band. Slowly breaking down and not really, like, its future looking a little sort of bleak. And so that was a pretty difficult thing for me personally to resolve. And it's taken a number of years, and still I don't feel totally comfortable with it, at ease, I should say. Yeah. It's better. The book was a great process to sort of recognise so many insane things and how great it was. And, you know, there's a few ugly moments that, you know, we experienced and are comfortable to talk about them. But, the book was definitely a moment of, I don't want to say healing, but just helped me move forward a bit.
Because you can process them as an adult now.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, true. Yeah, a few more skills.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've got a bit more perspective, I guess.
Yeah. That's been a big thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I play bass. That's where I am with you. I have also smoked enough weed that I thought the fucking world was ending even when I wasn't high. And when you wrote about that, I was like, Jesus, fuck. I thought I was some special snowflake. No. The way you described that, the way you described how, and it was hydroponic Adelaide weed, how that kind of was probably already all going on, but I Jimi Hendrix Zippo fluided that thing and I just hit go and everything went. Hearing you talk about that, and the work that it takes to come around that and work through that, with that perspective and what's going on, when you think about your friend Dan, like, how's that feel, man?
With the perspective, I think, and as you age and as you have more experience and as you have kids, I guess you just look at the world differently, right? And you realise that every single person is having their own journey. And we try and relate to each other as much as we possibly can to kind of make that journey not feel so scary and that you're not alone. And for me, that was a really important part of being so open and honest about the experiences during the band and before and after, just so if there are any Silverchair fans out there that see this extraordinary experience that we've had, that they can kind of grab onto those things and go, oh, good, I don't feel alone, or I don't feel like I'm, I don't feel weird or whatever. Like these guys that I looked up to or whatever it was, they were having this kind of struggle as well as I was. And, I think Dan's the same. I think, he's had his struggles, and I guess it's how you deal with them. I always felt like that over time, I felt like that if I confront them head on, as scary as it is, that on the other side, there's always a gift. It's like I said with Chris, that like having that first conversation, I'll never forget it with Chris. I was so nervous, but I was like, I've just got to have an idea of what I'm going to say, and I don't know how this is going to play out, but I've just got to do it and confront it, because on the other side of it, there could be something great. And I think that goes for a lot of the mental health stuff. It can be really scary, but if you put in the work and you're willing to, even give up a substance. Sometimes when you're taking a substance that you're self-medicating with, the idea of stopping it is scary, because it's kind of masking whatever it is that's worrying you or giving you anxiety. If you confront that and then you come out the other side of it, you get the gift, you get that clarity, and you go, oh, I'm okay, and I'm going to get through it. And for me, for Chris, for Dan, for anyone that reads the book, I think that's my message, is to, don't. Everything's going to be okay in the end, but I think you need a few years under your belt and a few experiences to get to that point. Because when you're in the eye of the storm, when you're in the storm, it can be scary. And you can have these horrible experiences and feel like it's never going to end, but it will.
Yeah, like no. I'm afraid now, and I'm. And I know that I know that every time I do this thing, I end up having like a totally green out, and I think people are coming through my front door, but I'm too afraid to not do it. I'm too afraid to not drink. I'm too afraid to not have that thing, even though I know it's going to be awful. And eventually it gets so awful, like, okay, now I actually really can't do that thing. I'm just going to have to just be with this.
Yeah. And I think, you really do need to put work into it, Yeah, that's the thing. You got to be willing to put in the work.
Yeah, but there's great reward out of that.
Yeah,
because you're just going to eventually destroy everything around you.
Yeah, and I find everything just blossoms.
Yeah,
like once you stop the booze, and once I stopped smoking marijuana a long time ago. But once you stop those things, some people, look, I'm not saying it's for everyone. Some people can kind of just have a couple of drinks and they're cool with it. But for the people that do go beyond
the 2.5,
beyond the 2.5, there's a clarity that comes with not doing it that is just so refreshing. And but the other thing you could get into with that stuff is, like, in Australia, like the stigma around it. Like when I stopped drinking, like I said to my friends, like, that's it, boys, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. And the first reaction was like, what's wrong? Are you sick? And is something wrong?
Are you expecting?
Yeah. So, and I was like, no, I can't do that anymore, because it's, it's affecting my relationships and it's not good for me.
Yeah.
But it's just, and even the social adjustment, because you get that little bit of Dutch courage, and you get that, the twilight, you get a bit of confidence,
But, some people can eat peanut butter and die.
That's right.
I can eat all the peanut butter in the world. I'm not upset at them. It's just that's how I talk. Like, if that molecule of alcohol, that's what it does to my body. Like, that's eventually, it's an allergy. When I drink, I break out and fuck with. That's what happens.
I break out into fuck.
It's terrible. Other symptoms include financial ruin, divorce, and career. It's always like,
It's the byproducts.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's to have each other, and to even to have you here in this space is fucking great, man. Because the way like I said, we kind of orbit in. There's people that we're adjacent. I'm a few rings around.
There's less than 6 degrees.
We're less than 6 degrees between us, and there has been for quite a number of years. And so when I started hearing about the health stuff that was going on with you, I was like, bro, it was so striking. And I can't imagine what it was like to have that happen, like not once but twice.
Well, I guess the first one was just...
to not have the structure of the band around you, to not be touring, to not be, have the management structure, to not have all that happening. That must have been really hard.
Yeah, well, I guess essentially I'd replaced the band with a venue that I'd opened in Newcastle, which it sort of did fill a lot of that, desire, that itch that I had for, doing stuff. And I had cancer.
Yeah.
And a very rare form at that too. And that was the other frightening thing.
Look at you fucking special. Look at you fucking super rare cancer. What was that gag? Are you so famous?
Yeah, you had to get the rare one, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. No, this is the Border Collie 5000.
Yeah.
It's never good when they go for the textbook.
No.
It's never good when your doctor, hang on a second here, and they I'll call the registrar.
Yep.
No, the one at Royal Brisbane, they know.
Yeah,
That's never
it was
fun.
kind of like that. And I do remember my first appointment, the oncologist sort of just expressing his concern and saying, look, I can't help you here. I'm going to refer you straight on. That meeting was over and done in about 10 minutes.
Oy.
And
See you
then
in 6 months. Oh, God.
Yeah. So, and then luckily, gratefully landed under Dr. Grimison at Lifehouse in Sydney. And yeah.
You've been all over the world. You've seen countries that don't have the healthcare we have here.
Well, and then going on to my next health episode, having a heart attack last year.
Fucking hell.
Oh, no, right.
And just talking about it.
You're a fit bloke. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, I thought I was too. Just how lucky we are in this country. After my first heart attack, I was actually doing some work with Ben on the book in Newcastle, and I was having some chest pains, and I thought, I'll just duck up to the hospital and I'll just get it looked at because it was still pretty fresh after the first one. And, get the blood test done. Oh, yeah, your level's elevated, blah, blah, blah. And, I had another third stent put in, and literally just in 24 hours walked in, had a blood test, angiogram, stent, checked out, had a coffee, walked out the next morning, and Ben picked me up from the hospital. I was like, we are so lucky that we have, these facilities. It was just easy. I'll just duck in, get another stent, and I'll be out in the morning.
Yeah. So what kind of changes does that lead to your life going forward? Because I'm sure you don't want to collect the whole set. You don't want another one.
No, definitely not. And,
not sure how many more you can get.
Is there any more space?
Yeah, there's one more, I think.
Oh, God. So what changes in your life? What kind of things can you be in control of here?
It's really just diet and exercise, lifestyle.
Classic.
Yeah, it's really what it comes down to.
I mean, there's something to that?
They do seem to think that it's a combination of my chemo treatment.
Yeah, right.
Has accelerated some heart disease, along with a hereditary issue. Yeah, so I sort of got a couple of things going on that are sort of out of my control. I could eat as much sauerkraut as I like, but it's not.
How good sauerkraut?
I love it,
mate.
Yeah, look, I've learned to love it.
the WOG upbringing that I have. I think.
But I do eat pretty good.
Yeah.
I like to eat at nice restaurants, so that's sort of little extra hidden butter here and there. But that's a treat. It's not a weekly or.
Do you go straight to the menu and look for cabbage?
Look, I do. When I'm eating, I do actually. I've naturally now steered away from a lot of the big, heavy red meats when I'm out.
Yeah.
And I'll always make sure that there is some green with every meal when I'm out.
Would you go for the Remember, the pasta with the egg through it? I think it's ricotta's. Would you still go for that? Would you still go for that?
Look, that's a really big treat if I was going to, but only a very small amount. You don't have the big bowl that you're sort of falling asleep halfway through.
Do you know the pasta we're talking
I
about?
know, yeah. It's been a while since I've eaten it, but I remember it. Yeah. I remember
So there's
it.
definitely lots of lifestyle choices that I stop and think, is it worth it? When I got my diagnosis, I guess essentially it was just hard. It's still kind of hard to believe that happened. And yeah, just in total shock, a little bit of disbelief. Yeah. And it still does feel like just a bit of a crazy dream. But I do consider myself extremely lucky. Yeah, it's hard to explain, really.
To be faced with your own mortality.
Yeah.
Like
well,
that.
I do say to a lot of people, like, the only difference is I've sort of been forced to think about death. We're all the same and we're all going to die, unfortunately. We're not here forever. That's kind of the only difference. And there's lots of other people out there with illnesses and bits and pieces and that are very difficult and challenging. But I guess, I've sort of been forced to stop and just think about that moment of death and what is it, but then it shoots you down lots of different areas of wanting to feel very resolved with things and comfortable, and you don't want to be carrying any excess crap because life is too short, essentially.
It becomes a fairly okay way to go through the day, though.
Yeah, so it sort of did catapult me in, a direction of just, as cliche as it sounds, just sort of living in the now and not really sweating the small stuff. And yeah, it's a nice way to live. You were talking about this the other day about going, I just need to be here, make sure I'm here in the next 25 years for my kids.
Yeah, that's it.
And like, you just want to, I want to be here to make sure that they're at an age where they're established in life and on their trajectory doing their thing.
You got to get them through the self-discovery of the teens and then the silliness of the 20s. So once they hit, because we all did it, once they get to about, if you get them to 30, then you kind of like, good,
I think 25 is when the prefrontal cortex finally forms.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That's as good as it's going to get.
Unless you're me and you drank holes in it, all through its development.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It really changes.
Yeah.
I had that when, and I say this all the time, I became a stepfather before Wolfie was born, and even like that Georgia was my girlfriend's kid. And then one day I woke up and like, I will do everything I can to protect you and save you, and like I'll push you out of the way of a train if it means that I die, because it's now all about you. It was like, wow, I'm a selfish fucker. And like now all I want to do is provide and be sure that the next
it's primal.
Now I was like, oh God, it was next year. It was next contract. Now I'm thinking 60, 70.
Yeah.
How am I going to be making sure that money's still around for this person?
Or just to be there, just to be there, because as a rock for your child.
Yeah,
it's important.
Yeah, I don't want to be, I just want to sit around and not be able to participate.
Yeah, that's right.
And be a part of it. You want to be. I grew up with guys who had dads who were old. They didn't leave the chair much, like the dad chair. They didn't leave their dad's chair much. It was like I don't want that.
Nah.
I don't want that.
I want to be involved.
Yeah. I just want to be a part of it. I want to do it. Music's obviously a thing that is, music's really special. It's a time capsule. It's an emotional, it unlocks a vault sometimes in us emotionally that we haven't been able to unlock before. Is music still a part of your life, even though if you're not playing it?
Yeah, it's still in our household. My wife's quite musical, so she plays a bit of piano and guitar, and daughter's learning instruments at school, and so it's still present. And they've got a bit of an idea on who Dad was, and
they're going to have an idea once they're able to read it.
Yeah,
They're not going to. They'll be like, oh,
yeah.
I wonder if it'd be like, we had an opportunity once. I remember Watto, our manager, came backstage. I don't know where we were, Motta goes, do you want to meet the guitarist from Aerosmith? And we were like, yeah, great, bring him back. Anyway, he came in, but he brought his son. I think he might have been like 12 or 13, and he was a Silverchair fan. And it was funny to see. I don't know if you remember this, but his son
rings a bell. He was a bit embarrassed.
He was embarrassed of his dad, who was
Joe fucking Perry.
Yeah. Was it Joe Perry? I think it was whoever the other guitarist was.
Oh, the other one, Todd, the bass player. I can't remember the other guitar player's name.
But anyway, it was funny to see, like, dude, like your old man is in a legendary band, but he was like, it was still his dad, and it was like, oh, dad, so embarrassing.
Get in there and get the photos.
So that's like, you know, where that's coming. It's coming. It is coming.
Like, gee, but it's good to talk about Bachelor again. Like, I know, but that's perfect. It's all a part of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's who you are.
It's all a part of trying to separate yourself from your parents, which, you know, as you become an identity of yourself, which you describe in the book quite wonderfully as the first tour after you were 18, when it was like,
yeah, we've arrived.
Yeah, we're here.
Back in 3 months.
Yeah.
We'll be right.
We got this.
And I guess the moment that you guys had where you had to actually sit down with your folks and go, actually, the fan club thing that you've been running, which is, I think, one of the real keys when I look at the way that your band is, the real key that you guys unlocked was that connection to your community and the nurturing of your audience in a way that other bands in Australia, at least, were not doing.
Yeah. And look, the mums facilitated a really wonderful portal for that. And they did an amazing job. And they were extremely dedicated.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't digital format back then. It was stuffing envelopes and
analog,
putting stamps on, and it was, so there was hours and hours of their time.
There's no MailChimp where you hit go.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, they're definitely, it just, I guess in that moment, it was no disrespect to them either. It was just, okay, cool. I think we can just give us the full reins and it's fine. Yeah. It's no disrespect. It was just sort of trying to bring it into just the three of us internally. I think it was also an element there. It just wasn't, it was getting more expensive and trying to keep it all going. It had to go towards that sort of more digital way. That's where things were going.
And I think at that point, like I think we mentioned in the book, we were 27.
Yeah, it was time that we just took responsibility for.
Yeah, it was our band. You know, we wanted to run it how we wanted to run it.
Because the business side of things, as we've discussed, the business side of things is the stuff that people don't really talk about. But as you clearly pointed out, that's the thing that keeps bands together. Is if there's a good structure. That's how the music keeps getting made. That's how people can get on tour. You know, David Lee Roth famous had the amazing the brown M&Ms, which is my favorite ever writer story.
I know it's coming.
I still use it. I still use it all the time. I use it with Zamet just the other day. So there's a few too many brown M&Ms with this, you know, this other project that I'm on. Nothing to do with him. And the brown M&Ms, for people who don't know, that was one of their outrageous rider things. But they were touring PAs and lights that were bigger than anyone had ever done, and they had some real safety problems. They had things falling out of ceilings. They had PAs falling over, stages that couldn't handle the weight. And so in the middle of the page 27 of a 40-page thing, when Van Halen came to play at your stadium, it said, we need 100 amp breakers, we need this many security per people, we need a stage that can carry this much, we need a bowl backstage with no brown M&Ms, we need this many things, we need this, blah, blah, blah. And so that way, if they walked backstage and they saw the bowl, they went, we're not going on stage because we have to check that it's safe. And I always thought that was a freaking cool idea. Was there something that you guys, like business-wise, that you put together that you're like, we're freaking glad we did that?
I mean, I thought you were leaning into the rider question there.
I mean, you can tell me about that.
I mean, that is really clever, actually. Yeah. That is a really clever. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Did they read the memo?
Yeah, did they? Yeah. How much detail did they go to put this together? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that one day.
Yeah, that's really. In terms of riders, I do remember we added socks. Yeah, we realised very early on that socks were an important part of touring life, and we noticed when we went to truck stops that
Why were socks?
I'm not
What were you doing with your socks?
I wasn't doing what you were doing.
Well, I never ran out of socks.
Look,
If the bus is rocking,
yeah, don't come a knocking.
Hey, Gillies, what's that rabbit doing in your bunk?
Look, I don't know why, but for some reason, like it was easier just to throw socks out and just because at truck stops for some reason they had these huge packs of like 30 socks.
Yeah.
So we put socks on the rider. So every place you went to, you just grabbed a
fresh pair of socks.
Fresh pair of socks
Because you could stretch a pair of jeans and a t-shirt out,
for a few days.
you know, to next laundry day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Socks after a gig.
Yeah, it was easy to throw them in the bin. Look, it was a little wasteful. I'm sorry, but for the recycling, not great. But it was easy to throw them in the bin, and you've got a fresh deck ready to go.
Well, look, Athlete's Foot has kept many a band off the road.
Yep.
That's right.
Hygiene, and I think Foo Fighters do socks and boxes.
Right.
A fresh pair of boxes for everyone in the band.
Socks and jocks.
Yeah, look, it's safe to say that athlete Jock Itch didn't bring Silverchair down.
Hygiene.
Old gig butt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was the way that who you were to have someone like John Watson, which you refer to him as Watto, the industry legend, to have that person guiding you through. Were there things that perhaps he did or moves that he made that you went, in hindsight, you're like, that was freaking move?
I think there was a lot of stuff that he did that we were unaware of. And like the mention of the M&Ms, I think he was that guy. He was the M&Ms guy that was kind of had an eye over everything. John and Mel as well, who worked at our management. Those guys were we just had so much trust in them. And, I'd say Watto and Mel and the team that, they're arguably probably one of the best in the industry, Australian industry ever. So to have them in our corner, and we just trusted them so much that, we didn't need the bowl of brown M&Ms, because we knew
those guys were there. Yeah.
They were just so good at what they did and made sure everything. Actually, Watto and Mel would often get upset with us because they put so much time into. We always had like a tour booklet and itinerary with like major detail on day to day,
on every day, yeah.
And then some days we'd call up going like, "Hey guys,
what's happening today?
What do we do? What's going on today?" And Watto would be like, "Oh, do you guys even look at these books that we spend like countless weeks and hours working on for you?" And it was just look at the bloody book. It's all there.
It's all there.
The tour Bible.
The tour Bible.
Ring-bound tour Bible.
Yeah.
Things to do in each city.
Yeah.
It's a 200-metre walk to a museum.
Pretty much.
Go and do it.
Yeah, sound check is this time. Here's your contact details.
This
Here's
is
your
the promo
interviews.
that's on that
Here's
day.
everything was there and was like, "Hey, what are we doing today?" Yeah.
Yeah, it's good that you guys, I'm sure that relationship meant that when it came time for you folks to go off tour, they felt okay that you guys were in good hands.
And also the crew that we'd established as well. Like it was a pretty tight-knit little group.
Yeah.
And like it was just one big travelling family, really.
What's the key to holding that kind of like a touring party of techs and people like that? You're just road warriors. You're in each other's. You exist in this universe, this bubble that only exists within you. You're two vans loaded of people in black t-shirts that work on a different time scale to the rest of the planet for months at a time. What's the key to keeping something like that together and not getting on each other's tits?
I think you learn where people's boundaries are really quickly. Like if someone needs a moment to themselves, you just go,
you can let them find space within this confined ship,
right?
That has no doors, no windows.
Yeah, because you guys are notorious for fucking with each other.
Oh, look, you had it was a sport, an art form, some would say.
Yeah.
Oh, this gentleman here was probably the best at it.
Really?
I get pinned with it. I don't think it's completely true. Everyone was involved.
Yeah.
Who lit the match?
I lit a few matches.
What was some of your more elaborate capers?
Just persistent, probably.
Yeah.
Probably like the hyena just hanging off the edge of the kill. Like, I'll get my dinner in a minute if I just keep. It's the law of averages, right? I'll get it.
Yeah, look, if there was a moment of weakness that wasn't going to hurt anyone's feelings or be nasty, that could be it was all about a laugh. It was all about a laugh.
Yeah.
And if there was a moment and I saw it, I would like to take the opportunity, to it's all about getting a laugh. If you got a laugh, proceed.
What was the one that had the longest bow drawn? I'm talking like, if not days, if not weeks, but like months before a payoff.
Oh God, no, I don't think there was that much thought put into it.
No,
To be
really.
honest, no, it was all
it's an instant gratification.
yeah. There was no real. I mean, maybe maybe Watto's the boardroom for Watto.
The birthdays thing did drag on a few years.
I don't want to claim that was all me. That was a collective, but inspired by. Yeah. So Watto had probably, I don't know if we hit triple figures, but he had a lot of birthdays over only a short amount of years. So wherever we went, if we were at a restaurant, we just say, "Hey, look, it's our manager's birthday." So what we particularly in America, we'd be hoping that it was like a kind of restaurant that will like 6 dancers would come out and a cake. That's what we'd be praying for, and it did happen a few times.
When you get it in Spanish. When the back of house crew come out.
Yeah. But he was a good sport.
He was, yeah. We got free dessert every time. But the boardroom one did take, it was...
Yeah, a bit more planning went into that.
Mm-hmm. We convinced him that there was this really important meeting that...
was it Epic HQ in New York?
The record company.
Yeah.
Not a small building.
Not a small
building.
building.
The Walter Yetnikoff, the room, the building that Walter Yetnikoff wrote about in his book. That's the Michael Jackson signed his contract in the fucking room.
That's probably the same room.
Same room.
Yeah. So we convinced Watto that we were having a big meeting in there.
He got all dressed up for it.
Got put in his best shirt. Little did he know that we'd organised a special dancer for his birthday. And I think we had some cream pies.
Big fat cream pie in the face. What more could you ask for?
I don't even know why we did it to him. Watto did become a target for a lot of our jokes. Actually, I remember one time in Germany. You might remember this. We were a bit younger, and he was nice enough to give us his hotel room and say, "Boys, have a bit of space away from your parents. Use my room. You can watch like some telly and just chill out." Anyway, we went into his room. We're like, right, what can we do here? So we basically anything electronic, we just kind of made it not work. And then I think we short sheeted his bed. So, I don't think a lot of people know what that is, but you kind of, when you get into your bed, there's nowhere for your legs to go. But then I think that we even got some chocolate and we melted the chocolate.
That's right.
And we smeared it over the inside of the toilet bowl and kind of just left it sitting in there. So when he got back to his room, he was like, this hotel is atrocious. Like
he's complaining downstairs.
They can't make beds. Nothing works in the room, and someone's taken a shit, and then they've left the remnants. So there's a little bit of planning that went into that.
Yeah.
But it's a way of telling someone that you think about them.
That's right.
That we care.
It was a big fat thank you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's so lovely.
We wouldn't have done that if we didn't care.
That's right.
To do a book like this, does this allow you to, I mean, it's a terrible metaphor, but does it allow you to kind of like go, close the book and just go, there's a chapter that is, we can now move, we feel okay that this has all been said and now we can walk on from here?
There's definitely a sense of comfort knowing that it's all there in one place.
Yeah.
I feel definitely a lot more comfortable reliving a lot of it and telling the story. There were some uncomfortable moments. And I definitely feel more at ease with it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But, it's life's the story, it just stops there because that's just where we're up to.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And tell me about, like, you have the life you have because you created something that people wanted, all right? And people wanted it so much they saved up, they bought the CD, they bought a ticket, they followed you, they showed up at every tour. What would you have to say, looking back, on the relationship with the people that loved the music you made, the fans?
I think we were, and still are, actually just really blessed for the fans because they were willing to go on a musical journey with us because we changed a lot. Because obviously we had a lot to learn as well and grow as artists. But they've just been incredibly loyal. And, some even quite fanatical, like just so invested in the band. And I always look at the fans as like, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have had the career that it's like for any artist, if you don't have fans, if you don't have people that follow what you do and are passionate about what you do, like it's just a hobby, So I think we're incredibly fortunate to have people that were just, came along the journey with us, and it was they were just so supportive. They were fucking awesome. They are fucking awesome.
To have you mentioned it, but what does it feel like to be on literally the other side of the world, where you are communicating by pointing at a picture of ramen or something and hearing someone sing a song that you guys wrote back at you from the stage? What's that feel like?
Yeah, it's incredible. And I reckon there's, undoubtedly moments that we just probably completely missed because you're just in the eye of the storm and it's all going so fast, and probably, and that book's been good to stop and reflect and have a whole new appreciation for lots of stuff that happened and we did and experienced. Yeah.
Smell the roses.
Dirty socks.
Dirty socks.
And roses is work for me, and it's like it's really it's like, hey honey, I got you a CD. You didn't pay for it. It's not a present. I can't bring roses home.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Doesn't work anymore. Doesn't work. To like, I know we started with this, but what does it mean that you've got each other?
Well, for me, I take great comfort in someone else knows a lot of what I went through and experienced, and we can probably relate to each other in a deeper way than probably other friendships, and not discounting those friendships, but it's just a little bit different. Yeah.
It was interesting because Chris and I did have a little bump in the road there for a while.
A dry spell.
It was interesting. But I think Carissa, Chris's partner, described it really well. That I think who we've also become really close with, Jackie and my wife and I, and she said because she hadn't seen Chris and I together, that when we kind of reconnected and rekindled that friendship, she made a comment saying, "Oh, I've never seen Chris like this with anybody else. They've just got this unspoken thing that they just get each other on that deeper level." And I guess again, it's our reality. We don't see it.
Yeah.
But it's just it is a special thing to be able to have an experience, and I kind of think that's what a lot of us chase, in life, is to have those relationships. So it's, you just gotta be thankful that we're able to have that.
And I think what you also said before about writing those experiences down of growing up at that time in Australia, and yes, you're having these quite magnified experiences, but they're the same thing that people are going through. I felt way less alone reading what you guys have been through. Going like, well, it wasn't in Brazil, and it wasn't, but I
can relate to it.
Yeah. And that, you feel like, oh, it's not just me. Yeah. And it's a really nice feeling.
Yeah.
It's a real gift you guys are giving us, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming around.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
It's good to see you.